While you all might have forgotten, these are the most bizarre encounters in space history you might have never heard of. Body John Glenn and the Space Fireflies. On February 20th, 1962, John Glenn became the first American to orbit the Earth. But as he entered space and hit the sunrise over the Pacific, things got weird as he looked out the window and saw something that definitely wasn't in the NASA flight manual. Thousands of tiny, glowing, yellowish-green particles started swarming his capsule like he'd accidentally flown into a high-budget Disney movie. At this point, Glenn realized these things weren't just passing by. They were following him, matching his speed like he was the chosen one of the cosmos. He radioed Mission Control, describing a brilliant shower of luminescent stars surrounding Friendship 7. Quite scary to NASA, they start wondering if they'd accidentally sent a man into orbit just to watch him get abducted by space dust fairies. Back on Earth, Glenn doubled down on what he saw, calling them Fireflies. He even claimed the particles had a mind of their own, reacting to him tapping on the glass like a bunch of curious galactic gnats. For a few months, America was convinced we'd found life in space, and apparently, that life looked like glowing glitter. The mystery held strong until May 1962, when Scott Carpenter went up in Aurora 7. He hit the same spot, saw the Fireflies, and decided to play cosmic detective. He reached out and banged on the interior wall of the spacecraft, and just like that, the extraterrestrial life shook loose from the outside of the ship. Turns out, the great space firefly mystery was actually just frozen pee and condensation sticking to the hull. Halfway across the world in China, astronaut Liwei was dealing with something even creepier. A constant rhythmic knocking on the outside of his ship, and there was nobody out there to knock back. Liwei, the mysterious knocking. In 2003, China officially joined the Space Club by launching Liwei into orbit aboard the Shenzhou 5. But once he hit that 200-mile mark, things got scary for him as a constant knocking hits his capsule. Imagine being thousands of miles away from the nearest Starbucks, floating in a tin can, and suddenly hearing a rhythmic thump, thump, thump on the hull. It sounded exactly like a wooden hammer hitting an iron bucket, which is basically the last sound you want to hear when the only thing between you and a vacuum is a few inches of alloy. Yang did what any of us would do. He checked the monitors and peered out the window, half expecting to see a cosmic hitchhiker. But there was nothing. No debris, no damage, just the noise. This is where the space-induced migraine kicks in, because as we all learned in middle school, space is a vacuum. No air, no sound. Hearing a knock on your door in orbit is like hearing a doorbell ring in the middle of the ocean. It's not just creepy, it's physically impossible. By the time he made it back to Earth, Yang was understandably a little rattled. He told technicians it felt like someone was trying to break in. Of course, the skeptics immediately jumped to the aliens card, or assumed Yang was just hearing ghosts in the machinery. It's the same UFO fever that followed NASA's James McDivitt. James McDivitt, the Gemini 4 UFO. June 1965, James McDivitt was piloting Gemini 4, floating over the Pacific and getting ready to make history with a spacewalk. But things went from scientific milestone to low-budget horror movie real quick. While his co-pilot Ed White was catching some sleep, McDivitt spotted something out the window that definitely wasn't on the flight plan. A white, cylindrical object with a long, arm-like protrusion. And no, it wasn't a very lost Amazon delivery drone. McDivitt's first thought was that he was having a space-induced fever dream, but the closer he looked, the more real it got. This thing wasn't just drifting, it was matching his speed and course like a stalker in a tinted window sedan. Every time McDivitt tried to get a better look, the object would catch the sun and flash him, almost like it was mocking him. He finally grabbed his cameras to get the receipts, but the second the shutters clicked, the object pulled a peace out and vanished into space. When they hit the Atlantic, McDivitt didn't just bring back moon rocks, he brought back the first ever viral UFO photos that sent the world into a total meltdown. It was the greatest mystery in the galaxy, at least until the Apollo 10 crew headed to the far side of the moon and heard space music that made the cylindrical stalker look like an opening act. Apollo 10, music on the far side of the moon. In 1969, the crew of Apollo 10 was cruising around the far side of the moon, completely cut off from Earth, when things got weird. We're talking Stranger Things in a vacuum weird. Suddenly, this high-pitched, whistling music started echoing through their headsets for an hour straight. And it wasn't just one guy having a moment. All three astronauts heard it. They started joking about it to hide the nerves, but let's be real. If you're floating in a tin can behind the moon and hear a flute solo, you're not laughing, you're checking your life insurance. The most interesting part about this was that this concert-style musical play happened during a total radio blackout. They were effectively in a cosmic dead zone, miles from mission control in Houston. The radio was dead, but the moon was apparently host to a sold-out concert that nobody invited them to. At first, they laughed it off, but that laughter turned into, we might actually be doomed silence pretty fast once they realized there is literally no air or magnetic field on the moon to carry sound. When they finally came down back on Earth, they did what any rational person would do. They kept their mouths shut. They knew if they told NASA they heard Space Mozart behind the moon, they'd be traded for a desk job and a psych evaluation faster than you can say, Houston, we have a problem. It wasn't until 1973 that the transcripts were declassified, leaving everyone wondering if they'd caught an alien sound check or just stumbled onto a frequency we weren't meant to hear. But quite literally, Story Musgrave snake-like object is another bizarre space discovery that no one ever imagined could happen. Story Musgrave, the snake-like objects. In 1996, Story Musgrave headed into orbit for the STS-80 mission, expecting the usual breathtaking views and freeze-dried snacks. But as soon as he hit zero gravity and started window shopping the cosmos, things got weird. He spotted a long, slender, white object that was about 6 to 8 feet long, just drifting. At first, he figured it was just another piece of space junk, but this thing wasn't just floating, it had a pulse. It was moving with a serpentine, rhythmic wiggle that looked less like a loose bolt and more like a snake that was looking for a space mouse to eat. Musgrave, a guy who literally has 6 degrees and more flight time than most birds, watched as this thing flexed its muscles and started swimming through the vacuum like a cosmic eel. It followed the shuttle for a while, just casually tailing them before curling up and diving back into the abyss. Look, I'm pretty sure getting hunted by an interstellar snake is exactly 0 people's idea of a good time, unless you're looking to start a very exclusive, very terrifying mile-high club. And here's the kicker, this wasn't a one-time glitch. Musgrave saw these snakes on 2 different missions. Later, he tried to play it cool, suggesting they might just be rubber seals that popped off the ship, but nobody has ever officially confirmed it. So we're left with 2 options. Either NASA has some serious quality control issues with their weather stripping, or there's a giant space python out there waiting for its moment. Either way, it's a mystery that'll make you want to double-check the locks on your spaceship before you go to bed. From John Glenn's glowing Fireflies to Yang Liwei's unexplained knocking and James McDivitt's orbiting UFO sighting, the most bizarre encounters in space reveal a chilling truth. Even in the most controlled environments, the unknown still finds a way to slip through. Yet somehow, each incident didn't just challenge what astronauts saw, it reshaped how we understand space itself, proving that exploration isn't just about discovering new worlds, but confronting the mysteries we're not prepared to explain.